Waiting on the Ravens to try to get it done and getting up on the holidays. This guy wrote a piece earlier in the year that should resonate with anyone who's a Ravens fan, who's been around from the beginning, as I was back in 1996 on draft day when John Ogden and Ray Lewis became Ravens. And there's always another story, and intertwined in all of this is the final fateful days of Lawrence Phillips. As the story was written on Bleacher Report, it has been turned into a documentary about the life and times of Lawrence Phillips. I chatted with Ross Greenberg earlier this week. It debuts on Showtime on Friday night. It'll be available after that. We welcome the author of a great piece out of Bleacher Report and a defending champion here, as well as an instructor of all things journalism down at Alabama. We welcome Lars Anderson back onto the program. And as we always point out, not related to Ole Anderson or any of the Four Horsemen. He is at Lars Anderson71 on Twitter, as well as at Bleacher Report. Lars, happy holidays to you. Welcome back in, man. How you been?
Happy holidays to you. I've been doing great, and thanks for having me on.
Well, it's always great to have real journalists on here, and I know in the aftermath of the Lawrence Phillips thing, I don't know how far back you go with Lawrence Phillips, and I mean, I know you were at Sports Illustrated forever. The 96 draft is, one of those infamous days in Baltimore sports history. I mean, it was the first day of the existence of the Ravens. There was no colors. They had held the fourth pick. It was widely believed in Baltimore that Art Modell, in the end, would go for the sexy, splashy pick of the running back, the can't-miss running back, troubled running back from Nebraska and Lawrence Phillips. But instead, Phil Savage and Ozzie Newsome drafted John Ogden. The story's been told many times here, and Phil Savage said to Mr. Modell, you'll never get a good night of sleep if you draft Lawrence Phillips. And they drafted John Ogden. The franchise here was never the same. And quite frankly, that's where you come in chronicling this story of Lawrence Phillips, right?
Yeah, I actually met Lawrence in 1995. I was a 24-year-old writer at Sports Illustrated, and I flew from New York out to Nebraska, and we spent a lot of time together, and I ended up writing my first SI cover story on Lawrence. And in that piece, we kind of dug deep into his background, and he was honest with me about he basically missed the entire sixth grade year because he ran away from home. He didn't want to be around his mother's boyfriend, who was very abusive. And he ended up getting thrown into a place called McLaren Hall, which was a home for boys, a state-run home for boys. And McLaren would soon be shut down because of rampant sexual abuse. This place was just straight out of a Dickensian nightmare. And we get into that in the film, and it really just sort of the demons that were created at McLaren Hall. Ultimately, Lawrence wouldn't be able to outrun them. And that led to all sorts of problems, especially when he would be in a stressful situation with women. And if he was ever rejected, he would just sort of melt down, and just it would manifest as lightning quick violence, startling violence. And it was shortly after my piece came out is when Nebraska went to Michigan State, and Lawrence ran for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Nebraska won 50-10, which to this day is Nick Saban's worst loss of his career. And we talked to Nick in the documentary. Nick was in his first year at Michigan State. And just about 6 hours after that game, Lawrence is back in Lincoln, and he gets a call in the middle of the night that he's informed that his ex-girlfriend, is in the apartment of Scott Frost, who was time he was a transfer from Stanford, and he would go on to lead Nebraska to a national championship 2 years later. But he was in the apartment of Scott Frost, and Lawrence, in a rage, went over there. And as he ended up telling one of his teammates that he went over there that night to kill his ex-girlfriend. And he roughed her up real good and got kicked off the team for a little bit. But that was sort of the first big indication that Lawrence had a serious problem with women. And those were big red flags. And certainly Phil Savage, who is a friend of mine now, he made the right call. There's no question about that, because the drafting of Lawrence Phillips set the Rams franchise back several years. Dick Vermeil came in Lawrence's second year, and Lawrence just was not sort of toeing the line, and Dick ended up cutting him. and I interviewed him for the documentary as well. And Vermeil tells us on camera that it was a move that still haunts him to this day, and he wished he could have done more to help save Lawrence.
Well, I mean, it's a sad story. I mean, it's an unbelievable sort of American sports tragedy. Why are you so moved by it and moved to do the Showtime special? And I talked to Ross Greenberg about this, who loves to tell stories, some of them dark, and this is obviously a dark story that involves, privilege in college football and what you can get away with and what you used to be able to get away with and what sort of has ended the public reputation of Ray Rice 2 decades later. And, of course, the Ravens were a big part of that as well. The NFL's a big part of that. And, we've had issues with the guy that's been elected president here, in regard to how women are spoken about and treated in modern society. And, this is sort of an open wound for all troubled football players, because when stories come out like this, some people are, they're all that way. They're not all that way, but when they are that way, guys like you go and write stories trying to get to the bottom of it. And he died in a prison, right?
He did, yeah. And really there's so much complexity and nuance to Lawrence Phillips. He standardized tests revealed in 8th grade that he was intellectually gifted. He had so much potential, so much promise, and we wanted to examine why. Why did Lawrence act this way? Not only do we document what he did, but we try to address the question of why he did what he did. And then, when Lawrence was in prison, his cellmate ended up dead, and that's a whole other story. That could be a book or a documentary in of itself. But basically, Lawrence didn't want to be associated, have anything to do with gang members in the prison. Said that repeatedly to the guards. And then when a man named Damon Soward was transferred into Kern Valley, he was a documented gang member, was serving about 80 years for execution-style murder of a rival gang member. And this is exactly the type of person Lawrence said, I don't want to be associated with. Do not house me with a gang member. I would rather be in the hole in isolation than with a gang member. And just the second night that Soward was in that cell, there was a struggle to the death in the middle of the night, and Soward ended up getting the short end of that. And Lawrence was then being, the state of California was seeking the death penalty against Lawrence, and he went to, had a preliminary hearing, and he knew at the preliminary hearing that the defense doesn't really get a chance to rebut or say anything. That's when the prosecution aired all of its evidence that they could use. And so Lawrence just kind of sat there and had to take all this without mounting a defense. And from Lawrence's perspective, he thought a certain prison guard named Jason Gaddis got up on the stand and just lied, just flat out lied. And Lawrence, the last thing he said in public was basically he called Gaddis a liar. And, Gaddis and Lawrence exchanged several looks as they were walking out of the prison. And Lawrence's lawyer told us that it was the kind of look where Gaddis was kind of saying, just wait till we get back kind of thing. That's what the lawyer said. And then about 6 hours later, Lawrence is dead in his cell.
Did you talk to Lawrence at any point during his incarceration?
No, I reached out to him, but it's not easy to interview someone who's in prison. And,
yeah, I know 60 Minutes makes it look easy, but it's not. I understand.
No, I wrote a letter, and I never heard back.
When's the last time you talked to him? Was it 1994, 95, in that range?
No, I talked to him when he was in NFL Europe, which was in 2000. I did a book on NFL Europe, and Lawrence played for the Barcelona Dragons, and caught up with him over in Barcelona. And he was the MVP of the league. It looked like he was on his way back to having a good NFL career, and then it just didn't work out.
He is Lars Anderson. The story is all things Lawrence Phillips and his life and times and the tragedy. It is on Showtime this weekend. You can go find it, as well as Lars's work out at Bleacher Report. Now, you wrote this story for Bleacher Report, earlier in the year, and then the documentary came about. Just some thoughts about the documentary and working with Ross Greenberg, who is, in my mind, a genius to the best in the world at what he does.
He absolutely is. We had such a great team working on this. It was Ross and Armin Katayan from 60 Minutes, was a co-writer with me on it, and also Al Briganti, who is a longtime producer at 48 Hours at CBS. And this is the first time I'd ever worked on a documentary, and it was fascinating just to see all the guys work, and we all spent a lot of time together out in California, retracing Lawrence's childhood, and then I interviewed Nick Saban and Dick Vermeil, and it was just a great collaborative effort, a lot of sort of back and forth, and I'm very, very proud of what we put out there, and it really. It all is reflective of just Ross's genius, and the cinematic brilliance of what he was able to do with the footage is just nothing short of just stunning.
I always say, the man has a gift. He's got a gift. Running for his life, the Lawrence Phillips story is out on Showtime. We got Lars Anderson here. You can follow him out on Twitter, Lars Anderson71. Before I get to Alabama, which is, a place that you call home and teach, we'll get to the football. You're doing a book on Bruce Arians, right, who is one of my favorite people in the NFL, and I've gotten to know him on the periphery through Chuck Pagano and Mike Tomlin and, a bunch of people around the league who know him through the owners' meetings. He's also a cancer survivor. My wife's a cancer survivor, so we've chatted about that. But what a fascinating cat to sit down and work on a book. I don't know that it's going to end with a championship anytime soon in Arizona. It's certainly going to end with a great hat for him and a smile. But what made Bruce Arians an interesting guy for you with the book?
Well, the name of the book is going to be The Quarterback Whisperer, and we dig deep into his relationships with Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, Tim Couch, and also just his sort of career in coaching, the influence of Bear Bryant had on him, and what it's like to be a play caller, what goes into the play calls. But really, it's just how to develop quarterbacks, and Bruce has just this amazing track record. He always is able to coax career years out of guys, and a lot of it has to do, frankly, with the fact that he was a bartender back when he was in college, and as you know, a good bartender excels at reading verbal cues and nonverbal, just sort of assessing the situation and just being very aware of sort of what's happening in the room, and Bruce uses those skills to relate to his quarterbacks and to really mine the psychology of his quarterbacks, and it's been a lot of fun. Bruce and I spent a lot of time together this summer, and we have had some back and forth over the phone, and he's really someone who I don't think a lot of people know too much about him, but he's a fascinating guy, and this book is going to be really good.
Had some health struggles lately too, right? I mean, the last several years he's been in the news for health issues.
Yeah, yes, it has been a rough year for him, no question about it, both on the field and off. But I know he's looking forward to coming back next year and trying to bring a championship to Phoenix.
Well, I'm sure your book will be interesting because he's an interesting cat. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Lars Anderson, 71 is the way to find Lars. Also the instructor of journalism. I didn't know that they still have journalism in the modern era, Lars. I mean, I'm always shocked when anyone teaches journalism because I just watched the election. I'm not sure that there's any left.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's difficult to find, but there are people who still do it at a very high level. And it's fun to be around the students who are intellectually curious, and I know journalism has changed, sports journalism especially has changed in the last 5-10 years, but I still believe that there is a place for quality reporting and quality writing, and a need for it more than ever.
But it's harder than ever to do it anywhere where there's alphabet soup and leagues and teams and, powerful, wealthy networks, and not much different than our election, quite frankly, in the way things are covered, which is which way the wind blows, right? There's a lot of writing out there now. There's not a whole lot of journalism out there anymore.
I agree, and that's why we need journalism schools.
Bama going to win a championship and get you guys a parade down there for Saban and for my pal Phil Savage?
It certainly looks that way. Bama's gonna be a double-digit favorite in every game they play. I know an NFL scout who I trust implicitly texted me the other day, and he believes that Washington's going to beat Alabama, and he scouted both teams. And his reasoning is that Washington's defensive front four is as good as any in the country. The defense features, he said, 6 guys who are going to go in the top 3 rounds in the draft. And he thinks that Washington can pull off the upset. I frankly don't agree with that assessment. But the way to beat Alabama is you keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, and you make Jalen complete those 3rd and 7th throws in the fourth quarter when the game's tight, because he hasn't had to do that yet. And you know that is going to be the game plan that Washington's going to bring. And then I would assume that Alabama will probably play Ohio State in the final. And that would be just another great matchup of Urban Meyer versus Nick Saban.
Well, Lars, if you didn't like Alabama, they would ship you over to the state border near Auburn somewhere, right? I mean, in Tuscaloosa, you have to believe Alabama's going to win. I don't think there's any reason to not believe they're going to win. I mean, until I see somebody beat them, it's kind of like the Patriots on Monday night beating up on the Ravens when I was up there in Foxborough. Until I see somebody, go beat them, I don't want to say it can't be done, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is Nick Saban's best defense that he's had in Tuscaloosa since he became coach 10 years ago. And again, talking to another scout, he said that there's 15 guys on that defense that are going to go in the top 3 rounds of the draft. So when they come out, so it's just loaded with talent. They've had a couple injuries on the back end, but they just replaced their starter with another former 5-star defensive back. It's just it's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's funny of you to say that about the defense. C.J. Mosley's in full support with now Crimson Tide dreads. His hair is red. And I looked at him and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. You went to Alabama. It all makes sense now. So, there's full support everywhere for the Crimson Tide outside and Roll Tide and all that good stuff. Well, enjoy the rest of the journey down there and your book on Bruce. I'll be following your work, of course, a follow out on Twitter at LarsAnderson71 as well as at Bleacher Report, and we'll be on the lookout for the Showtime doc on Lawrence Phillips as well. Always great to catch up with you, man. Happy holidays.
Thanks. Happy holidays to you.
You got it. Lars Anderson71 is the way to find him out on Twitter as well as at Bleacher Report. One of the last journalists left, and a journalism instructor with the Crimson Tide down in Alabama as well, Lars Anderson, with an 071 at the end. You can find me out on the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear podcasts. Listen when you want, how you want, where you want, to all of our stuff. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. The morning newspaper ships digitally to your email inbox each and every morning, right around 7 o'clock. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to work off the eggnog and the cookies and all the bad stuff that I'll be doing here over the next couple of days and weeks as we get through the holidays and eat our faces off. Planet Fitness is there. PlanetofTriumphs.com is also there, and it's still $10 a month heading into 2017 as well. Any breaking news? If the Orioles sign any more Wellington Castillos, you get it first on the WNST Text Service, and of course the injury report. Looking forward to seeing how we get Jimmy Smith out onto the field or not on Sunday. We're all hoping, that's why we have injury reports. They come first on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis is here every Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. Monday, we're at Buffalo Wild Wings and Owings Mills doing our best seat in the house as well as our Blazing Wing Eating Challenge. It is our final Monday night this Monday, so come on out for Monday Night Football. Tuesday night, we're up in Aberdeen, Harford County, chatting with Mike Wallace and swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero in the DKMS. First chance to meet Mike Wallace, my first chance to talk with him. I'm looking forward to doing that on Tuesday at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen. It's all brought to you by Fremont Mortgage and all of our sponsors for There Goes My Hero, including Continental Title. Big appreciation for them, especially here during the holidays. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Hope to see you at the game on Sunday. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.